in the OAF, we require a controller. Okay. So what is a controller? A controller is a simple Java file. Like a controller. Controller is a Java file to handle the events. Okay. We can have the controller at the page level or at the region level. Okay. We'll see what exactly is page level, what is region level also sometime later. Now what we do is we'll create a controller at our hello world page. So to create a controller, what we have to do, navigate to the page, navigate to the hello world page. So a page level, every OAF page will have the top level region, that's called page layout region. Every OAF page will have a top level region, that's called page layout region. Okay, and generally we name it as main region, just for a convention. We name it as main region. And on the main region, on this particular main region, now what we do is we'll create a controller. On the main region, we'll create a controller. And if you click on hello world page also, it doesn't show any information here. So this is the next, see, generally the top level one, you'll see the page name, and the next level, whatever you see, it's called page layout. Okay. On the main region, right click on the main region and click on set new controller. Okay. And here you make sure that you give the web UI with only one. It is by default will generate twice. So remove the last generated one here, web UI, and appropriately give the class file name. So let's say hello world co. So this is our class file name. Hello. So the program name will be hello world co.java. Click OK. So once you click OK, automatically it will generate this information to us. Okay. It's a by default generated program, right? What we have mentioned is we just mentioned the package as well as the program name. That's it. The content, whatever the code which you see inside this particular controller is generated by default. But if we observe what exactly this particular thing, like this is very important for the developer to understand. So let's just see one by one line of code. So here if you observe, let me enable line numbers also. You can enable line numbers like this. Toggle line numbers. The first line you see is called package. Package means the directory structure in which the file is saved, and after that followed by import. So import means in the Java, whenever you are trying to access a method which is available in another class, we have to have an import for that. You have to import the particular library, then only we can write the appropriate code. Okay. Fine. Okay. And coming to the line number 17, if you see, the class name is public class hello world co. It is extending OA control implementation. So what is the purpose of extending OA control implementation? Because generally to handle the event without using this framework, it will be around 20 lines of code. To handle the button event or any hyperlink event without using OA framework, maybe it will be around at least 10 lines. It will be at least 10 lines to handle the event. So now, what is this framework is doing is it is reducing our developer effort to write all the code. Okay, we just need to use this framework and write only very simple statements. Okay, and the first line, that is why it is extending the OA control implementation, because it can read all the it will have the access of all this particular implementation class. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, OA control implementation is also one of the class API. See, just when you perform control click on this one, it will navigate to another thing. When I click on control click, it will navigate to another. It will navigate to the OA control implementation, which is having all these methods. It is having all these methods. Like it is having constructor, a set of fields, and a set of methods. Got it? So here what I am trying to tell you is this particular controller which is generated is extending a seeded class, is extending a Java API, considered as Java API. This particular Java API is provided by Oracle, and it will have the core logic for handling events. And now within our hello world table, we are extending this particular class, so that we doesn't need to write much coding here. The majority of the coding will be done by the OA control implementation itself. We just need to write some of the framework level kind of event handlers. Okay, it's very simple statement. And within the hello world CO, if you observe, there are two methods which are generated by default. There are two methods which are generated by default. One is process request and other is process form request. And there's another method which is generally not shown, but it's called process form data. It's called process form data. And these all three methods will have two parameters. These all three methods will have two parameters. It's called OA page context, OA web page. Okay. These all three methods will have two parameters. One is called page context and other is called web page. So what is the purpose of this page context and web page is? Page context will have the page related information. It's nothing but it will store page related information and parameter information. So what is parameter? Whenever you are trying to pass the data from one particular page to another page, this particular page context object, or I can say variable, will hold the information. And user information and all your available information like responsibility name, application name, everything is available at the page context level. Okay. And coming to the page, it stores the hierarchy of the OAF XML components. You can say OAF UI components instead of XML, say OAF UI components. This is the difference. Page context is used for the purpose of storing the page level information, and the thing for the purpose of storing the information about UI components on the OAF page. Okay. And there is a difference between process request as well as process form request. So process request will be called during page load. It is called during page load. Nothing but initialization process. Whenever you run the page, the first method which is called is process request, and whenever as a user or a business user when you raise an event, this is a method which will be called. Maybe like if you're coming from a report background, you have a PU report, what to say, before report trigger and after report trigger, right? Something like that. Before parameter, after parameter, same thing. So before parameter is like before entering the parameter it will call, and after parameter is after entering the parameter it will call. So in the same way, this process request will get called during the initialization. It's the first method which will be called before your page is getting loaded. And process form request, this will be called whenever as a user whenever you click on any button even, this method will be called. So if you understand, whenever as a user if you perform any of the event, only this method will be called. The process request will not be called again, right? The process request will not be called again. That will be only called during load, and this process form request will be called after page load. That's the difference. Now what we try to do is whenever you want to handle any events, you have to write your logic in the process form request, isn't it? Okay. Yeah. You go to the page now.
Process form data.
Process form data is for the this particular one. It is used for the purpose of setting and getting properties, setting and getting values from the components. So generally, whenever you design any of the OAF components, what will happen is it has to perform some validation whether the data which is entered by the user is correct or not, whether it is checking out the appropriate data types or not. So that is a validation done by the process form data. Process form data is used for the purpose of validation, and also it is used for the purpose of setting the values as well as getting the values. And this is the default method which as a developer will never write any code in this one. It's a framework related method, and the framework will take care of it. Okay. Fine. Yeah. So now what we do is we'll create a button within our hello world page. We'll create a button as well as we'll also create a text box within the hello world page. Within our hello world page, what we do is we'll create a text input box, and also we'll create a submit button. So what we do is as a user we'll enter the data in this one, and whenever user clicks on submit button, we'll say welcome message. Okay. You go to the page, and on the page, click on the page, click on the main region. Now, the first component what we want to do is we want to create text input box. Right click on the main region, click on new message, like a new item. Click on new item. Okay. And the style item style is message text input. We have different styles which are available. I'll name it as this one. By default it is message text input, so I'll go with this one. And here I'll say name ID. Name ID. So here in the visual prompt section I'll say enter the name. Okay. So now this page is having a component called message text input, whose style is message text input, and the ID is name ID, and the prompt is enter name. This name ID is the name of this particular component now. So whenever you want to refer this, whenever you want to get the value or set the value to this component, you have to use only name ID. Using name ID, we can identify this component. Every ID of any of the component within the page is unique. Okay. Nothing but like within a particular block, the variable name should be unique, right? It can be of any language. It can be of any language. Within a particular declaration area, the variable name should be unique. The same concept here. And the main region, again I'll click on new item, and click on. Now we'll change the style to submit button. We'll change the item style to submit button now. Okay. I'll name it as go. Small go. And the prompt as again the capital G, or I'll say something. Anything you can have. Okay. So whenever we click on the go button, we would like to get the value of the name ID and print the information to the user. So how to handle this event? So within the process form request, like we have to handle the only process form request, because this is a method which will be called after the event. So you can simply write like this: if page context dot get parameter, and this go is not equal to null. If this go not equal to null, it means that user has clicked on the go button. So in the get parameters, the page will have the parameter information of that particular ID. So whenever user clicks on any particular button, what will happen is this page context got this get parameter will have the information. This will have the event name. This will have the event name. So based on this, we can say that a particular event has been clicked on. Okay.
Okay. That get parameter though it's not equal to null. It enter any no yes like that of values, right?
Yes, right. So we can print the value of this one also. Let's say string event name is equal to. So generally what will happen is this event name will hold some value whenever user clicks on go button.
Okay.
Okay, we can also print this event name. So if the page is having multiple events, what will happen? You may have a different stuff. We'll have a different name like that. Right? Even name will be different. In our case, this is the event. Okay. Now the next thing is we have to get the value from this particular name ID component, isn't it? The name ID is having the item style as message text input. The name ID is having the item style as message text input. Every item, see, generally we call these particular UI level components, we call it as beans. All these UI components, we call them as beans, Java bean. Why we call it as Java bean? Because it will have a Java API for the purpose of setting the properties. This particular UI level components, all the UI level components which you see in this particular framework are Java bean, and each particular component will have its own set of Java API for the purpose of setting or getting the properties, manipulating the properties. So what I mean to say is, like in our case, the component item style is message text input. Message text input. So this supported wrapper class for this one is, it will start with the OA, and it will start with this particular same name and followed by bean. This is a wrapper class name. So this is one of the easiest ways where you can remember this particular wrapper class name. Okay. So now what we do is, within this particular method, I'll say OA message text input. Just press Alt F key. Just type the partial name, and just automatically the framework will search the name for you. And if it searches, it will give you whether you want to import or not. Just press Alt Enter. It will import for us. It will import for us. So select the that's one. Message text input. Now I'll say name ID B is equal to where B dot point index tail request. What are we trying to do is to get the value from the name ID component. To get the value from the name ID component, we have to create a method for it. We have to create an object for it, so that using that object we can get all the values. So see, name ID is of item style message text input. Okay. So by default, to get the value from that particular variable, we have to handle it in its own way, right? Because this is a framework. We have to follow some of the syntax rules here. So what are we trying to do in this line is line number 49. What are we trying to do is we are treating it. See, this is the class name. It's a class name. Like last time, if you see the Java sample, the first one is called class name and this is called object name. So this object we are assigning a value. From where we are getting from this one. We have been find index tail record. So in this one we are passing the name ID. So what is this name ID? This is the ID of our text input component. This is the ID of our text input component. So what exactly this particular method will return is it will return the location or maybe some pointer. So I'm talking about memory pointer, like a RAM level memory pointer. So it will return the pointer location of this particular component. And now this using name ID B, we can get all the information about this particular bean. So now I'll say name is equal to name ID dot get text. That's it. So this will return the value which is entered by the user. Now I'll return one more message called welcome str is equal to hello user. Welcome to okay. Now I would like to display this information to the user. So simply what we can do is we can declare a component called OA exception here. OA exception is a API which is used for the purpose of throwing the messages on the page. Like it can be information, warning, error, whatever it is. We can use this particular API for the purpose of it. So like in a PL SQL you have exception block, right? Exception when and when kind of block. So the same thing we have here. Exception. Just give welcome here followed by OA exception dot information. Right. And after that, just throw exception on. That's it. Like this. Okay. So this is the code which we have tried for the purpose of handling the button event and to display some information. So let's try. And also we'll try to display some information like which method we are. Let us say this using SOP. This is nothing but log statement. In your PL SQL you have dbms output, right? The same thing we have system.out.println for the purpose of displaying the data in the log. In the process request method now. And you see at this place we'll say in the process form request method. In the process form now let's run the page. It doesn't need to take care about like compilation of this particular Java file. This will get compiled automatically by the page. So just simply run the page. Anyway, if you have any error, automatically it will show a red color here. And if you observe in the log, somewhere it has to show the process request message which we have written. Somewhere it will show now. Let's see. Observe it. Can you see? In the process request method. Right? So after printing this one, it is not doing any other process, right? Just simply stop it there itself. Observe? It simply stop there itself. Now let me clear this log. And let us say now I'll click on this event name now. I'll click on the event name. I'll enter RAM and click on this button. Observe what will happen. So the event name, it is printing something. It has printed the event name. So it did not print any event name here, but it is not null. It is not null, isn't it? It is not equivalent to null. It is not equivalent to null. Okay. The event name is, what is happening is here, if you click on some other particular value, you are passing the ID of the button name, right? That is when the event name is not null. If you pass any other component that you try to get the value, it may be null. Okay. What I'm saying is, let us say, so here we clearly mentioned page underscore get parameter of go, right? So if at all, if the user has clicked on go, what will happen is this particular parameter will not return any null. It will return a not null value, nothing but some kind of space or something. That's the thing. That is the thing happening here. So to get the event name also we can get it like this. So there is another parameter called. There's another thing called like event name also you can get it like this. Okay. We'll see that those conditions sometime later. Now to understand this one, what are we trying to do is within this particular process form request, we mentioned page parameter get parameter, and we mentioned the go button, the ID of the button, and that's not equal to null. And once if at all user clicks on this event, then only it will enter the block. Else this will not enter the block. Okay. And after that, you're getting the value, you're getting the pointer of the name ID component, and after that, you're getting the text value, and just perform some kind of URL level addition here, like hello concatenation followed by name string followed by welcome to OAF, and after that we are displaying the information to the user. In this OA exception.information, we have different types here. We can throw it as a warning, we can throw it as an information, warning, right? Error, information, right? We have different types of OA exception based on how exactly you want to do. Yeah. Okay. Let us add up one more button and see how to enter that event. Okay. Let us with the same program. What we do, we'll add up one more button.
Yeah, I have a doubt actually.
Yeah, sure.
Here, event name is now written null only, right here. The go button event.
It is not exactly null here. I'll tell you. See, it is not null. Let us say that is okay. I'll show you. See, what I will do is let me add up one more component. I'll show you how exactly it works. And I'll say this submit button as button. Okay, or SBT submit button. Okay. Now let us enable this information. Okay. Now when I click on submit button 2, this particular event name will be null now. Observe this. In the OA framework, we have different kinds of event. One is button event, hyperlink event, and the image action event, LOV as well as pop list. So there is special event handling for the purpose of buttons as well as other kind of components. And now if you observe, let us say, here's the log, and click on submit button. Can you see now the event name is null? The event name is null because here in the event name we mentioned page underscore get parameter followed by our button ID here. Especially we mentioned our button ID. And let us say now what I will do is we will just enter some data. Click on this click button. Now the event name will be not null. It is not having any value, but of course it is not null. Nothing but a space it is having. Could be. Got it? Event name is in the before case it was null, and this next case it was not null. In the next case it was not null. Got it? This is the one. Fine? Okay. Now to handle the other event, like this is our submit button too, right? To handle this particular button event, what I will do, just almost similar code, not much different. What I will do is just simply like we'll write else if condition, right? Else if condition. Because at any point of time only one button can be called. I'll do else if. Else if this particular SB2 not equal to null, then I'll display some information. Like we'll go to the new way now. So new OA exception, the shortcut. User clicked on second button. Now we'll go with warning. Got it? Let us try how it works. Just click on submit button 2. It says that user clicked on second button, right? Now, as the user, if I click on the first button, it will display some other information. Got it? So we are able to handle multiple events. The only thing is you have to write the appropriate if and else condition and your button name, button ID. Fine. Any doubts in this one?
Keyword, so new.
Yeah, here it is kind of a shortcut here. You know, like what is happening is, so instead of declaring an object and throwing this fashion, what we are doing is we are combining these two lines. We are combining these two lines in this case. Line number 63. What are we trying to do? We are trying, like this particular constructor. We call it as constructor. So what is a constructor means? In a Java class, whenever method name, if method name is equal to class name, it is called constructor. Method name is equal to class name is called constructor. Now what is happening is, in this case, if we consider the first one, first of all we are creating an object at this place. And after that we are throwing here. Nothing but we are indirectly throwing this only, isn't it? We are assigning this information to this object and we are throwing this object. Now what I will find is, instead of creating a new object, we are directly throwing this information. We are directly throwing this particular information. So it's kind of a shortcut. We are combining two statements, and without assigning variable also we are able to call the particular object. This is another style actually.
Any other object we can use for new.
So generally, yeah, see, this new is a kind of a Java keyword for the purpose of creating an object for a given class. A new is a keyword which we use for the purpose of creating an object for a given class. So now in this particular line number 63, what we are doing is just instead of creating an object and throwing the object, we directly throwing the runtime object here. We are directly throwing this information. We can go either way also. We can go this way also. Both will work. We have seen it, right? Both are working. Only thing is another unnecessary extra variable declaration, object declaration. Of course, at runtime it has to allocate a memory. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. So shall we switch to another topic?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now in this case, like what we try to do, we try to create a OAF object. Nothing but we'll see OAF page with the CO and with the AM and with the VO and database now. This other case, like we try to display data from a SQL query, from database using SQL query.
Can you please somewhat slow because you are very fast working.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So like, are you clear of this particular things which you have done, or any doubts in that? Yeah. So like anyways, like in this particular scenario, we'll go like we'll see multiple samples. We have to be working on this particular throughout your framework. We'll see, like we'll try to see in a very slow manner. Okay. So first of all, now what are we trying to do is, let us assume that, let us consider requirement. Let us consider requirement. Requirement is, I'll say requirement here, to display employee data in OAF page. I mean to say HRMS data, HRMS employees. What is the requirement is? We want to design the OAF page where we would like to see all the employees working in that company, nothing but in our instance. Clear? Got the requirement? Understood?
Yeah.
So now, if at all if you have a requirement, let us say as a functional consultant, I say that, no boss, this is my requirement, and you please develop a page. So as a technical developer, what all the components you have to consider? What all the components you have to consider? First thing is like an employee page. I'll say this is one of the page which we create, and we'll create a controller. What is the purpose of controller is, because to initialize any data, we require controllers. Without having controller, we cannot initialize the data. Even our page will work without controller, but still, to initialize we require the controller. And we require AM, right? We require AM. And we also require a VIVO. Why do you require a VIVO? To get the data from the database. Nothing but this is cursor. Let us say in a PL/SQL program, in a PL/SQL procedure or a function, whenever we want to retrieve any data from the database, we have to use a SQL query. A SQL query can be an implicit cursor or it can be explicit cursor, but it has to be a cursor. So I'll say we'll create a VIVO called per people VIVO, which will be based on this particular select query. Okay? This is the VIVO object. So these are the components we have to create in our page. Fine. So AM already we have like a AM method. AM is already available within our within our project, right? We doesn't need to create it again. AM is having XML file as well as am_imfile.java file also. What is our AM name? Observe this. Double click on this one. Amazon Business Services AM. This is our AM name. It is having two classes. Sorry, it is having two files. Amazon Business Services.xml, Amazon Business Services imbuild.java. Okay, and that's it. So most of the BC4J objects, all the BC4J objects, you will observe two files. One is XML file as well as the Java file. We'll see that anyways later. Now, what I'm trying to do is, like we require all this particular component, right? We have to have a page, controller, AM as well as VIVO. So already we have the VIVO, already we have the AM, so we'll not create the AM again. Okay. Already we have the AM, so we'll not create it again. We will not create it again. We'll just simply create the page first, or maybe we can create the VIVO also. So let us create the VIVO now, because this VIVO has to be used in the page. So without having the VIVO, it's a waste of designing the page also. So better create the VIVO first. Okay. Now we'll see how exactly we can create the VIVO. Okay. Fine, Kiran?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the VIVO should be in a server package. The VIVO should be in a server package. So what I will do is click on this particular server package like this, and right click now on the server package, perform a right click, and you'll see new VIVO object, right? New view object.
Okay.
Click on this new view object. So it will show a graphical wizard. Click on next, and here make sure that the package name is correct, and also you mention what is the VIVO name. I'll say per people VIVO, and in this particular, it is asking what kind of data you want, what kind of VIVO it is. It is an updatable VIVO, it's a read-only VIVO, or programmatical VIVO. So now we are in essential phase, we are going with a read-only access. We just want to display the data. We don't want to perform any updation. So go with the read-only access. Simply click on next. And here it is asking to enter the field. It is asking us to enter the field. I'll say select start from _people_x, which will display the current employees. Alright. So we can also mention like we just want to display only the first 100 rows. Let's say we just want to display first 100 rows. So as of now we are not giving any bind parameter. Okay, just go with the plain query. Don't worry about bind parameter, all those stuff. Simple a plain query. Okay. Click on next. So it is just connecting to database to validate whether the SQL query is correct or not. Click OK. And just simply click next. Now it will display all the columns according to the SQL statement which we mentioned. It will display all the columns according to the SQL statement which we mentioned. Click on next. Nothing to change. Simply click on next and simply just go on. Yeah. The last method is the last wizard. If you see, it is generating a class called voiml.java file. It is generating a vivo object class called per people voiml.class or Java, you can see. And simply click on finish. Now, if you observe, this is an object which got created. There are two files which are created for this particular object. The vivo object is having vivo.xml as well as vivo.voiml.java. So we see here, as of now, we don't try to enter into what exactly this method, what it contains. Okay, we'll have a clear understanding on that particular in the next classes. Okay, as of now, assume that we created the vivo, right? We have created the vivo, and the next step, what we have to do? We have to assign the vivo to the AM. Remember that in like the demo I told you, right? All the BC4J objects should be assigned to the AM. Then only we can use that particular component in the pages. Else we cannot use it, and it will not have any memory allocation for it, because within this particular framework, this is what you say, the application module is the only Java component which will allocate memory for all the components. So unless this particular components are the part of an AM, it cannot have any runtime behavior. So what we do is we'll assign this particular our vivo object to the AM. So how do you assign? Simply double click on the AM now. Double click on the AM. And in the data model, select the vivo and move it to this particular one, right side. Click on this option. So now what it will do is, actually let me show you one more thing. I'm just clicking on cancel now. So within this particular imfill.java, just observe. This is our amimfill.java. This is amimfill.java. If you observe, by default it is having a method called main. Right? It is having a main method as well as some constructor name. It is not having any other methods. Now once we add up the vivo, it will generate a new method. That is, just observe that here. Double click on the AM now. Double click on the AM and just see this. Select the vivo, move it to the right side and simply click on apply. Once you click on apply, it will generate a new method. Can you see? Per people vivo, get per people vivo. It generated a method called get people vivo, get per people vivo. Okay. We'll use this particular method for the purpose of initializing our vivo and getting the pointer location and many other purposes. Okay, we'll see that. Now the next step, what we do is we have to create a page as well as controller, isn't it? We have to create a page as well as controller, isn't it? Fine. And in the web UI, what I will do is right click on the web UI, click on new, and click on OA components and page. Click on OA components and the page. Click OK. Now enter the page name. Enter the page name. Let us go with per people page. Okay, per people page. You can go any name, just click OK.
Yeah.
So on this page now, we have to set some properties, right? Remember, one of the basic properties, AM definition. Without setting AM definition, it will not allow the page to run. So click on this region and rename it as main region and attach the AM definition And in this one, enter the window title as well as project. Paste it. Producer. Now what we want to do, we want to display all the employee data. So as per our VBO, how many rows it will generate? Approximately 100 rows, isn't it?
Yeah.
As per the VBO which we created, based on a SQL query, it will generate approximately 100 rows. In this particular framework, to show the data which is having more than one row, it will be a table. Generally, it is like maybe in the XML report or maybe in the normal RTF report also. If it is if you want to display multiple rows, like if it is an RTF template, you have to go with a table wizard, right? If you have to be table wizard, if you want to show multiple rows. In the same way, in the framework, in this OAF framework also, we have a table where we can handle multiple rows. So simply what we do is on the main region, simply right click on the main region and click on new region using wizard. You click on new region using wizard.
Okay.
And click on next. Select the VBO. Select the VBO which we want to use. Click on next. And it is asking what is the region ID as well as region file. I'll say people region, and the table, the region style is table. The region style is table. We have a different region styles which are available. Okay, we have different region styles which are available here. And now as we want to display multiple rows, so we have to use table region only. Without there is no other region which can show multiple rows. Only table region can show multiple rows.
So the table region like our form multiple frames like that, right?
Right. Like maybe if you can, I'll show you how exactly table region looks like. Let us see one page in the instance. This table region you will see in almost all the OAF pages. By default, common component which is used most of the times. Can you see? This is called one of the table region. This is called table region.
Okay.
This region is called table region. It will have a set of columns as well as a set of rows, and it will have a column header. It will have a column header, rows, and columns. Okay? Yeah. So we also try to display the same kind of thing now. So simply click on next now and select what the columns you want to display in the output. So you can display like based on our requirement, you can display how many columns you want. Okay. Yeah. So click on next, and we'll name them like here the style of this item style. The item style is message text input it is showing. So text input is not an appropriate one here because we want to just display read-only data. We don't want to allow the user to update. So simply make the style as message style text. Name the style as message style text. And click on next and finish. Okay, so almost our page is done. Let us run the page. Let us run the page and see what will happen. Let us run the page now. Okay, so now what it is saying? Any observation? Within the table region, it is showing some information, right? What is that?
Values,
It is not showing any value. What is the reason? Any guesses?
right? You have checked don't contain any values.
Sorry?
The view doesn't contain any other values.
No, it
No
is
data, right?
no. It is having values. Like even if you just say take the statement, if you execute in a SQL developer, it will show the data. It will have like a larger database actually. That is why I mentioned row number less than 100.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
the reason is we have not executed our Vivo. See, if you observe, it is saying no search conducted. By this itself, we should understand that it means that the underlying Vivo of the table region is not executed. It means that Vivo is not executed. The underlying Vivo is not executed. That is why it displays no such conducted information to the user. So to initialize the Vivo, to execute the Vivo, we have to write execute method. To use the to execute the Vivo, we have to write execute method. So where we'll write in the AMIMPL, in our AMIMPL.java, we have to write vivo.execute query method. So whenever you write this method, automatically the underlying Vivo will get executed. Okay, so we'll see that logic now. So go to the AMIMPL here, click on Amazon services and click on AMIMPL.java, this one. Now we'll go to this particular file and inside this class, this is a class, right? Inside this class, anywhere, just on the top you can write on the DOM. Inside the class, write a method, public void, initialize per people Vivo. This is a method name and it doesn't return any data, right? It doesn't return any data. It is only for the purpose of just executing the Vivo. So what we have to do, our Vivo class name is per people Vivo IMPL. This is a class name. This is our class name. This is a Vivo class name. And this is our object name. Now what we want to do, we want to know what is the memory allocation done by the AM. So what we have to do, simply just write this getter method. Simply write get method, get per people Vivo. And now we want to execute it. That's it. When you perform this particular two statement logic, it will execute the Vivo.
But Vivo1 is our
Vivo 1 is the instance name. If you observe correctly here, see here. Get method, what it is doing is returning the pointer location of this particular per people Vivo 1. So what is this per people Vivo 1 first of all? Like if you whenever we are assigning the Vivo to the AM, it is assigning some instance name, isn't it? On the AM, observe, this is our instance name, isn't it? This is our instance name. But this particular definition is available in which method? This belongs to per people Vivo only, isn't it? So what are we trying to do is the AM, see, we have created a class, nothing but a Vivo, and we have assigned the Vivo to the AM, okay? And the Vivo should allocate a memory for it. So while allocating the memory, that memory location name is per people Vivo 1, nothing but instance name. It is nothing but whenever the AM allocates memory for it, it gives some name to it. So the instance name is nothing but the runtime allocation of that particular Vivo object instance name is per people Vivo 1. Okay. And now what are we trying to do? We are creating an object and getting the location of it. We are getting the location of that particular Vivo and we are executing that particular part now. We are executing it. As of now, it is only initialization will be done with the AM. AM will not execute unless you call it and do some changes to it. Okay. So we are getting the location of it and we will write the appropriate logic for it. Like we want to execute query, this is a method which will execute the data, execute the underlying query of the Vivo. Okay. And other thing is this method has to be called from the CVO because the page cannot speak to the AM directly. Maybe if you observe this again, this particular logic, the page cannot speak to the AM directly. Even though we attach the AM to the page, it doesn't mean that it can execute all the methods of the AM. Even though we have assigned our AM page, this AM to the page, it doesn't mean that it can execute all the methods of the AM. Okay. Getting? So now what we have to do, what I'm trying to tell you is we have to create a controller also. Without having controller, we cannot execute the Vivo. Got it, right? As per this particular logic, if you understand, as per this logic, To call the method in the VIVO, see what we want to do is we want to call a method in the EM. We want to call a method in the EM. If at all if you have a CVO, it can call a method inside the EM. But you know, even if you observe our starting case, what we have done, we just had something like this, right? OAF page, AM DB. AM is there and DB is also there. But in this particular scenario, what this particular AM will do is AM will not allow the page to execute all the methods. It will allow only for some purpose only, initialization purpose only. It will not allow the page to execute a specific method. The page is not having the capability to mention what method it wants to execute. The page on its own will not have the capability to execute the method what it wants. So the CVO is the only thing which is responsible for it. So that is why now what we do is, for this particular page, we'll create a controller for this particular page. So go to the per people page. Now click on the main region, set new controller, and we'll create a controller. Per people CVO. So this is a controller. And now what we want to do is we want to call the method which is available in the EM. So what is the method name? This is the method name. So in the CVO, what we do is the process request method will call the method. We'll call this method. So how do we call it? First of all, we have to know this method is available in which particular file. It is available in the Amazon Business Services IMPL Java, isn't it? It is available inside the other Java file. So, but there is another kind of a shortcut we have. What we do is OAF application module. Sorry. Page content dot get application module. Okay. Now what we do? AM dot invoke method. That's it. So here nowhere we are mentioning Amazon Business Services IMPL. Here we are nowhere mentioning the Amazon Business Services, but indirectly the page content dot get application module, what it will do? It will automatically get the application module which is assigned to this particular page. Nothing but at the page level, what are the property we mentioned, we'll get that particular name. Okay. And now in this one,
AM values, right? AM classes and
yeah, this get application module will return this Amazon Business Services IMPL object. And in this, using that particular object, we are invoking a method called init person this particular VIVO. Got it? See, this is one way of writing. Another way what we can do, we can write like this. And in the directory you can write Amazon. Yeah, like this we can write. Okay. That's it. This is another way of writing. Either we can write this logic or whether we can write this logic. Just try this logic now. We'll execute. Let's see. I have commented this line now. I have commented this one. Let's see what we have. The other logic is a generate method. The other logic is generate method. So it depends. We can go with either way, but generally we use the first option. Now it has to show the data because we have executed the VIVO. Got it?
Here I mentioned that 1 to 10 that
Yeah.
is
No, this is the default framework behavior. Here, whenever we create a table region, by default the framework will assume that they want to display 10 rows, but we can format it. We can have we have all format the stuff. So go to this particular table region, and if you observe, can you see the records display? So we can name it as 15. Let us say you would like to display 15 rows, and you can also mention what is the width you want. By default, the data which is shown on the page is occupying only half of the portion, right? Only the 30 or 40% of the portion. Let us say my requirement is to show only this data, but I want to make this particular data to occupy toward the page. I want to occupy the total page. I can say 90% approximately. So just given a percentage fashion. Given a percentage fashion. Okay. Yeah. Again, you can run the page and see the difference. What's the difference? Now it is showing the 15 rows as well as it is occupying the approximate around 90% of the page. So generally this is how the page looks like. Like generally they will make the page to occupy 95%. It all depends on the requirement. Clear?
Yeah.
Yeah. So can we have one more samples or we continue with
You actually, I'll try this through.
okay. Okay, fine. Yeah. I'll send you the code and you can just see it appropriately.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
I try these two things and
Yeah, sure.
comfortable.
Yeah, that is better. Yeah, you should be comfortable initially, and then based on that, we can go with a different ways.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay then. Sure, yeah.
Tomorrow also same time, okay?
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, same thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, same time.